y'all, Tanny Cooks here. Today I'm going to show you how to make some delicious soul food collard greens in 20 minutes in the Instant Pot. Yes, I said 20 minutes. Typically, I take several hours to cook my greens, but I want to try them in an Instant Pot and see if I can cut down on some of that time. So in addition to my greens, I'm going to use some fat back, which I have, typically I use smoked turkey, but I have this fat back in my freezer, so I want to go ahead and use it up. And then I'm also going to use an onion. I like to shave or chop some onion and have that in my greens for a nice bit of flavor. And I'm also going to add a host of dry seasonings. So let's get to cooking. So to start off with our collard greens, I have 2 bunches of greens, and they look a little bit worn because I bought them a couple of days ago, and they do change rapidly. And I went, today is Sunday morning, I'm just going to start peeling my greens while I talk. I went to the grocery store to buy some more. I was going to cook these, of course, and then just buy some fresher ones. But when I got to 2 different grocery stores today, miles apart, neither one of them had collard greens. And that's why I'm so glad that I started to grow my own collard greens. A few years ago, it was like in December, so when people are typically making their greens for the new year, I went to buy some because I eat them about like every week, twice a week in the winter and fall. And I couldn't find any. And I'm like, I can't be having a collard green shortage when I'm in the mood for some greens. So last Tuesday, I started my 2 different types of collard greens, 2 different types of mustard greens, and I started 2 different types of kale. So let me know down in the comments if you want to see pictures or videos of my plants. I started them last Tuesday, and the seed packet always says might take 7 to 14 days or 21 days to sprout. Mine come up within 2 or 3 days, which is good, but it's also bad because it means I have to be prepared to move them to their next step in the grow process in my grow room, but that's gardening. So what I'm doing for my greens is that I'm just taking a couple of leaves, stacking them on top of each other, and then I'm ripping them from the stem. And you can see these are good and dirty. So just rip them from the stem. Now these stems you can definitely save and juice. They still have a lot of nutrients in them, but they tend to be tough when you are chewing on your collard greens. So most people pick the majority of the greens off. So I pick through them first. So typically when I get greens, I cut the ends off, and then I cut these ends off, and then I cut through the greens. But because these have started to yellow, I wanted to pick through each leaf individually. So that's why I end up just pulling them off of the stems. And then I'm gonna chop them now, and then I will wash them. So I keep a grocery plastic bag to reuse to get rid of my extra stems, since I'm not gonna save these and juice them. So I'm just going to give these a coarse chop. So let me know in the comments, what is your favorite way to cut your collard greens? Do you cut them in squares like I did here? Do you like yours shredded up? Do you just tear yours by hand? I do them a different way each time I cook them. I don't really have a preference. Just as long as they're bite-sized pieces. Now it's time to wash these in vinegar and water a few times and make sure we get all the grit and dirt out. Okay, so I'll move my Instant Pot out the way, my rack. So what I'm doing is I've already washed my greens like 2 times, just lifting them out of the vinegar water and then putting them over into my second bowl to rinse again. And I like to be sure to lift my greens up out of the water that they've been sitting in so that I can leave most of the sand and grit at the bottom of that pot. And so I just keep transferring it from one bowl of water to an empty bowl and add clean water until the water runs clear and I don't see any sand or grit. There's a little bit in there, so maybe a couple more rinses and then finally we'll be ready to cook. Actually, this cleaning process is gonna take longer than the cooking process since we're right here. So this is a medium onion. And in order to make, I really like my plastic cutting board. Even though I have a wooden one right here, the plastic one is just so convenient. You just have to remember to put a dish towel below it so that it doesn't slip around as you're cutting on your counter. So my onion, I like them to be cut up very finely because I mostly want them for flavor, not for texture in the greens. But we're gonna cook these down so you won't notice them texture-wise. And actually, for the amount of greens I have, I might just use half of this onion. I'll go ahead and do the whole thing. So there go our onions. So now that our onions are sliced, I'm going to turn on the saute function of my Instant Pot so that I can fry up my fat back. I have it set at 5 minutes, but I will saute it as long as it needs, maybe 7 or 8 minutes total. So here is my fat back in the Instant Pot. This is a Southern staple. It gets very crispy when you cook it. And what we're doing is rendering out that beautiful fat from the fat back meat. That fat has a lot of flavor and it will add some salt to our final dish. So it cooked, I took out the fat back meat and I let it drain on a paper towel, and we have the fat in the pan, and that's what we're going to use to saute our onions in. So just place your onions into your Instant Pot. This is the same exact process as if you were making this on the stove. You would just saute your onions in the fat in your frying pan. Look at how beautiful that is. You want to use your spoon to move it around because we want a soft saute on these onions, not necessarily to sear them to a dark color. So now that my onions are soft to the point that I like them, I increase the time on my Instant Pot, and I'm going to saute my greens to cook them down a bit, because remember, I usually cook my collard greens for hours on the stove. The Instant Pot is going to cut down on that. Look at that beautiful fat back, y'all. You can eat this just as it is, which I ate a couple of pieces like that, but a few pieces will go into the dish. So I'm putting my collard greens into the Instant Pot to saute down a little bit, and you'll notice the greens are fluffy as I'm adding them, so I'm just pushing them down with my spoon, and I'm not adding any water to the Instant Pot to cook them. The greens will naturally release water as they cook, and remember, I rinsed these off well, and even though I drained them, there is still a little bit of water on the leaves, so no reason to add any additional liquid. Just continue to add your greens, let them saute, and you'll notice they start to reduce down in your pot. Looks like my Instant Pot is over full, but it's really not, y'all. So I'm gonna add some seasonings at this point. Complete seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder. Poultry seasoning adds a nice flavor, and some black pepper. You'll notice I didn't add salt, one, because the complete seasoning has some salt in it, but also our fat back, which actually I rinsed off my fat back before I fried it to get some of the salt off of it, which is a step you may want to do to control the sodium in your dish. So I'm just eyeballing my seasonings. We're going to taste test at the end of the cooking process anyway. So you can start off with about a tablespoon of onion powder, garlic powder, maybe a teaspoon of the black pepper. And you'll notice that the greens are sauteing and cooking down. So I added in a few pieces of fat back, and they sauteed all the way down. So now what I'm gonna do is set my Instant Pot to the pressure cook high for 15 minutes to let my greens cook, and they did just that. So they've been sitting for about 8 minutes, and now I'm taking my tongs to stir them up. See how they look? They look like they've been cooking for hours. Absolutely delicious looking. So now I'm gonna get a little bowl to taste them, do a little taste test, and see if I need to add some more seasonings before serving. They were delicious, but I need a little bit more salt flavor, so I'm gonna add no salt, sodium-free seasoning, and a couple of pieces of more fat back. And there we have it, absolutely delicious and beautiful soul food collard greens cooked in under 20 minutes in a pressure cooker. Y'all, this is a game changer for Sunday dinner soul food style. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe.